What's up, guys? I'm Nikki.
I'm Bella, and this is the Out of Our Minds podcast, a playground for mystics and self-explorers to journey through the vast realms of the universe, cultural landscapes, and spiritual expansion.
Join us weekly as we dive into thought-provoking discussions that unveil the mysteries of existence and nurture the growth of our consciousness.
Hello, and welcome to the Out of Our Minds podcast. What's up, guys? This is Bella speaking, and I have the honor of doing the first introduction, the first intro to the first episode of the Out of Our Minds podcast. Boy, am I excited to be here. This conversation today is a beautiful, beautiful encapsulation of Nikki and I. We talk about really just introducing how we met, how this podcast came to be, and a bit about our stories, a bit about why we're doing this, really our individual contribution to the vision of this show. We literally could not be more excited to be sharing this first episode ever. We're going to look back on this and probably laugh at ourselves, but that's the goal, because we're here to have open, honest conversations. We're so happy you're here. In this episode today, you can expect us to go into a bit about ourselves, a bit about the vision of the show, and talking about alignment and how our lives, our experiences basically brought us here to this moment where you're seeing us sitting on the couch recording, and talking about how you get to that life of alignment, what it's like to lead from your soul. We both contribute basically our viewpoints on what it means to chase after that kind of life. We also chat about kind of our philosophies when it comes to the importance of conversation, the importance of discussion. And one of my favorite parts was just hearing the why reignite within me of that core love for conversation, for learning, even for disagreement, and for how important it is to expand your mind even when it gets uncomfortable. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I'm just so excited. I'm going to let us just get into the episode. Thank you guys for being here. We're so, so grateful. This is the Out of Our Minds podcast. Let's dive in.
Here, right, ready? You go, greetings, and I go, greetings, and then greetings. That's beautiful. That's harmonizing. That was really nice. Should we start a choir? Fuck the podcast.
It's just so like a front. It's like we wear ET alien costumes and we walk up to doors and go,
greetings, greetings, greetings. They're like, who the fuck?
No, it has to be more.
Greetings.
I hate that. Okay. All right.
Oh, we're recording.
Yeah, I just started already.
Oh, nice.
But
okay.
We could
edit that out. All right, go. Take it away.
All
Take
right.
it away.
Hello.
Hi.
All right. As you can see, Nikki and I are together sitting on a couch recording a podcast that is called Out of Our Minds. And we're really excited. I'm particularly excited to be here because this has been basically like a manifestation months in the making. And I'm just like kind of shook that this is actually happening right now.
I'm just as shook. I mean, you pulled out all these gadgets and gears, and I didn't really know it would be this legit, but this is awesome.
Did you think what were you expecting?
No, I understand that like with podcasting, there's mics and like headphones, but this thing takes it to a whole new level.
I know.
For anyone who can't see, we have this beautiful soundboard in front of us with really pretty buttons that are rainbow and purple and pink.
Yeah,
and
I don't fuck around.
Yeah, no, this is legit. We're in it.
If I'm going to do something, I'm going to fucking do it properly.
Yeah. She went Capricorn on my ass.
I went Capricorn on your ass. Every time we have a new idea, I'm like, Nikki, I'm just warning you, like I'm going to go Capricorn on your ass, which is what I did. So anyways, the context is that we have a podcast and I'm so fucking excited to do this. I've been podcasting alone for like 3 years and I honestly was just over it. I was like, I'm good. I think now that it came into possibility that I could podcast with someone, not just with anyone, but like with a friendship like this, which is something we're going to get into of like how this even is a thing, because it honestly does not make any sense. Then I just knew I was like, I'm not podcasting alone for the foreseeable future, and I want to do this together. So we had this idea to start the show called Out of Our Minds, which at the end we're going to talk about like what that means to each of us.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy to be sitting here doing it. And when I was like pitching ideas to Nikki, I was like, I'm going to make a pitch deck. Like I made a literal PowerPoint presentation with like a mood board and all this stuff. And I like literally presented it to you as if I was pitching it to like a board. And you were like, what kind of a monster have I agreed to work with?
No, you know why I was so down for this? Because I personally, even before I met you, was wanting to make a podcast. And like the amount of signs I had gotten from the comments on my TikTok and my partner, and just like every time I would sit down in meditation and like ask my higher self what my next move is, it was always to share in a bigger way, whether it be with YouTube or podcasting. And it almost felt like the universe was like, you're not going to do it on your own. Here's some Capricorn crazy ass mofo that's going to do it with you.
Here's a scarily ambitious woman.
No, but we really do balance each other out well, which we'll get into, I'm sure. So it just felt like all the stars aligned, and why the hell not?
It just makes sense. It really makes sense. And what's cool is we're sitting in Joshua Tree. We are at an Airbnb because we were like, let's like really do this right. And I feel like when I visualized us doing this, it was always in like the proper setting with the right energy and the right look and feel. And just us being here, I think, is such a testament to like that soul, heart led living that we talked about in the event that we hosted together, Forge Your Own Path. And it's just like wild what happens physically in your life when you actually make those decisions. And that's kind of like the epitome of this exact friendship, is the like domino effect of choosing things that might not always make sense, but they just feel right.
Right.
Whatever is right for you.
Which is scary. And I think a lot of times we do get those very intuitive hits on where we're meant to go next in our journey, but it's clouded by the fear. And I think it's so special to have a business partner when you're navigating this path, because it's almost like you can lean on each other when that fear arises and you're like, no, we can do this. We got this.
Yeah. And
I think it's really cool because we both bring different strengths to this partnership that are going to really allow us to flourish in really special ways. And I'm excited to see where this podcast goes. I'm excited to just get into it. I'm having so much fun already. As soon as I put on these headphones, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in it.
We're doing it.
We're doing it. We're in this. We're in this.
Oh my God, I love it. Okay, so I think what will be fun to share is kind of like just how we basically got here, and like just for basically people who don't know us or like know us from Forge Your Own Path or from anywhere in the freaking on the internet or whatever, is how did this happen? And like the big really moment that started it in terms of how we actually came into each other's lives was us meeting each other through Instagram, and me seeing a reel of yours that was like basically going viral. And I just like fell in love with your vibe. I thought you were so cool. And I followed you and I was like, oh, she seems really cool. Obviously at the time, like I had no idea what was going to like flourish, but I just felt very drawn to you. And I'm someone who like, I have made a lot of friends through the internet, like specifically through Instagram, and where I just like connect with people, women in particular. And if I feel like we would vibe or they seem like, you know, we're aligned, I'll just like DM them or reach out or respond to their stories and be like, oh, I think like you seem really cool, whatever, and just like start the communication. And that's what I did. I just DM'd you and I was like, hi, I like, you're kind of cool. I like your vibe. Like I see what you're doing, like keep going or something like that. And from your perspective, what was that like?
I think, you know, this happens a lot online. Like I even will reach out to people when you're putting yourself out there so vulnerably and sharing the depths of like your personal growth journey and your healing journey. It isn't weird to message people in that way, because when you're sharing that type of content, there's people who automatically resonate with it on such a deep level. And I think that's what happened when you watch that video. It's like you really cut through straight to the depths of someone.
Yeah.
And whereas maybe on like a personal Instagram, or maybe you're not sharing your life's journey on Instagram, which is totally fine. Not everyone wants to do what we're doing of
Not
sharing
everyone is insane.
Not everyone is out of their fucking mind. But yeah, when you are out of your mind and you're sharing your life's path and your journey, I think it's super special when you have those people that are on a very similar wavelength, because it really invites in some opportunity to connect on like a profoundly deep level right away.
You kind of like surpass the surface level stuff, because basically like I think both on the surface and like almost on a subconscious level, people can read when you're just being yourself. And like they don't have to like figure you out. You're just like, okay, that's who Nikki is. Like I feel like energetically, if you're just like tapped into that world, like you are of the practice of listening to your intuition and following, you know, your gut or your feelings towards alignment, then it just starts to make sense. So it's like, that's exactly what it was. It wasn't like logically thinking through, oh, like she doesn't even live in my city. Like I've never met this girl before. Like I know nothing about her. Like all of those things would deter you from actually striking up a friendship. But I think when you've opened yourself up to being like, what could happen if I actually just like follow this inkling and reach out? Right. And then that led to, we were like in touch a bit, like over DMs. And I think again, because we both share very openly, that for me, for sure has caused so many friendships to develop, especially like throughout the pandemic. Like I always stayed true to myself and would share my opinions. And that helped me, because then people will be like, oh, I know what you really think. I know who you really are. And it just like got rid of all these little things that you would like tiptoe around when you first meet someone to like see if they're like on the same page as you.
Right. Yeah, totally. I mean, it was really cool when we were able to meet in person.
This year, if someone, like 4 months ago.
What was it, January? If someone had listened to like our conversation, they'd be like, oh, they were friends for like ever, because we just sat down and got right into it.
No, we met 8 months. We met physically in person for the first time
in January.
It was early February.
Oh, okay.
I think. Either way, like basically 4 months ago.
Yeah, and it just felt like we were meant to meet each other to create something together. Yeah. And for anyone who's listening that knew about Forge Your Own Path, that was really the first manifestation of creating something together. And it felt so aligned. And we could do a whole podcast on alignment and how that feels in your body, and just like the energy that creates in your life, and the ease and the flow. But that is really how this partnership with our business and our friendship has felt. So creating this podcast just felt like the next step. It wasn't even really a question. And I think it was funny how it came about. We were in Puerto Rico working on FYOP, and I think we had stayed up till like 4 a.m. We were watching Gaia, watching like these documentaries on, I think
we watched one on channeling.
Channeling, yeah. And then we started talking, and we were talking till like 4 a.m. And I remember you had gotten up to slice the banana bread, and you were like looking over the kitchen. Yeah. And I think you said out loud, like, we should have recorded what we just spoke about or something. Yeah. And we both looked at each other and we're like, wait a damn minute.
Yeah. I was like, should we? I think we should start a podcast. But something that I'm remembering now too about this is like, initially when we met for coffee in February in LA, I happened to be in LA. I had like one day to spare where I could go and meet up with people. And I was like meeting a couple people that either had been a long time or they were like online people. And initially it was like we sat and we talked for an hour and we just got really deep into it. We're talking about like our journeys, our paths, like how we used to work in corporate and now we're out of that, and like how it's evolved. And then I was like, we should collab on something. Let's like do a workshop. Like at first it was like just simple. Like we both work in the same industry, sort of, we're like, you know, content creators / we just have this presence online. So I was like, why don't we work together initially? And then that literally provided like the seeds to fertilize like a friendship out of it. So it was interesting because it was just following the gut feeling of like, I feel like it'd be cool to do something together. Like we seem like we're on the same page. We're like have, you know, great insights and we love to share our wisdom. Let's do something. And then as we started to meet on Zoom, we like blew it up. We were like, what if we did like a whole event? And you were like, what? Like a whole, like several hours of events? And I was
and
like.
then we made another deck.
And then we made another deck, yes. So anyway, the point is like, was just being willing to like try things out. And then I think from there, we just started to notice these patterns of being really led, like almost like divinely, like that feeling of when the universe is conspiring in your favor. That's always how I feel when we do stuff together. And I think that was the biggest indication to keep following that. Even if it was like, you know, I mean, and honestly, I think it makes sense, but the fear sometimes comes in when you're like, I guess I'm following like a feeling, which is not really what I'm told I'm supposed to do. But when it feels so aligned, like that's what you have to keep going toward. And I think that's what makes everything we do come out so easily.
Yeah, totally. Should we talk a little bit about like what the listener can expect from this podcast, maybe our vision with it?
Yeah.
Drop them into our mood board and all the exciting stuff that we feel like we're going to dive into. You go first.
Okay. So, well, for me, it's like an important part of it is the fact that I had been running my own podcast for years. I started one in early 2020. It's called 100% BS, which are my initials. And it was like my little podcast baby. It really catapulted me into the world of like having an online presence, building an online brand, a personal brand, content creating, that whole thing. It was my side hustle for a really long time. And it had an amazing run. And then something kind of just like shifted in me where I just didn't really want to do it alone. And I had thought about in the fall last year, I was like, wouldn't it be so cool if I found someone who could be like a producer, but also occasionally have like a presence on the show? That was like my idea. And I was like, I'm very frustrated by doing this alone. And it was hard because I wanted to keep it going. I felt like a responsibility to keep making episodes, even though it was just hard for me to do it alone. Like when you're a solo entrepreneur creator, there's only so many projects that you actually want to do all the jobs. So I had kind of put out into the ether that I didn't even really intentionally put it out there. I just was thinking about it. I was like, it would be kind of better. My life would be better, more fun if I had almost like a partner in this. And then we met and we do this project and I just start to see like our banter, like the way that we talk, we're interested in similar things. We're like very willing to go there. Like we're just very open-minded and we love having conversations. And for me personally, having conversations that are interesting, it sounds like, oh, everyone loves that. But I fucking love conversations. Like I grew up where around the dinner table, like we had family dinners almost every night. And no matter your age, like you got to participate in the conversations, whether it was about like school and travel or about like interesting political or cultural things. Like everybody got to participate. And I loved it because it really created this like curiosity in me. And like in my own relationship with Milan, like some of the most beautiful moments have been when we're at dinner and we're like talking about consciousness in the universe and what is it like how do our brains work and like all these fascinating topics. So that's like something that just at a core for me as a human being, I just love conversations. And I also find it really important to disagree and to push yourself to be open and like have debates and arguments that are friendly and like towards the pursuit of truth or towards the pursuit of understanding. So the point is, personally, this is like a world that I've just been in love with and have wanted to do that through my own podcast. It just wasn't working anymore. So then when we started working together and the idea came out of doing a podcast, the second I visualize something and it feels right, I'm like, pedal to the metal, let's fucking do it. And when I visualized the idea of having a partner, like a co-creator, to do something like this, to just like create this bubble of conversation and curiosity and providing value for each other and just literally just chatting and not being afraid of being wrong or like being unacceptable or canceled or whatever, like just openly expressing myself, that lit me up and just really reignited in me. Like that's why I started a podcast in the first place. Like that's the creator I envision myself to be. So then Out of Our Minds really developed out of like I think reflecting that to you, being like, I just love doing this. I'm a creator at heart, and I want to be able to talk to someone about all the things that fascinate me. And that's at a baseline level is like, I just love having curious, interesting conversations and not being afraid to go there. Like I really, it's like a goal of mine to like push myself to see how honest I can be and not be afraid of what people are going to think of what I'm saying. Cause that's like what I went through in COVID, was to like tell the truth online and like at my workplace, which is like a story for another time, and like really be like, what is true for you? Why aren't you saying it? If you're not saying it because you think someone's going to dislike you, like look at that. And like, that's my core why of, I'm just really fucking curious. And I like love conversations. And then the conversations we have between the two of us, I was just like, this is a no-brainer that we might as well put this out because it's so fun and it keeps us like going. Like every week to have a conversation, we're going to grow and learn from that. So that's my really long-winded answer.
Amazing. I love it. I mean, I have a very similar answer. I'm obsessed with learning. I'm obsessed with learning about things that I can integrate into my life that make me a happier me, that make me a more peaceful me and more powerful me. And I think this curiosity for learning information really started for me on my own healing journey and my own awakening journey. And if you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to assume that you've been down the rabbit hole of awakening and learning about consciousness. And if you haven't, that's okay. That's why you're here. We're going to talk about it.
We're going to go there.
Yeah, we're going to go there. But yeah, there's just so many beautiful topics that have liberated me in so many ways in my life. And I approached this learning journey with such an open mind. And I think it's rare in the society that we live in to come across people that are open-minded to learning these things and also understanding not everything is black and white, and we can look at things with a critical eye, and we can be open and agree to disagree and to have these beautiful conversations where we're shifting our perception on things that are maybe deemed truth by who even knows who.
Yeah.
So for me, like my awakening journey really shifted me out of a really dark place, and learning information that elevated me to this new frequency and this new vibration and this new way of living just made me even more interested in finding out more information and like talking about it with other people that are integrating this information in their life and that are walking embodiments of this information. And from there, it's just like this never ending journey of exploration. And you're in a totally different game of life when you have this open-minded view of just, ooh, like what else can I learn about myself? How can I turn inwards and receive more information on myself and my journey? And having those conversations with another person is just even more beautiful because like you're vibing out and going on these long riffs about these beautiful topics. And I cannot wait to dive into these topics further with you.
Yeah.
Because I know just how deep we can go and how vulnerable we can get and how authentic we can get with the way that we speak about them. And I think that's needed in this part of, I don't want to call it an industry, but like the self-help, personal growth, spiritual world. Sometimes there's a heaviness to it that may repel certain people that could actually benefit from hearing this information.
Right.
And I think something that's so special about us is that we add a lightness to conversations that may have been a bit heavier, and a playfulness and a sense of joy with dealing with all parts of ourselves and really understanding that we can approach this journey with a lightness in our heart. And I think there's a lot that we can do from that angle. And I think we can impact a lot of people from talking about these subjects from that angle. So I'm just super excited. And we're obsessed with learning. Like, I can't wait to learn about more topics and bring them to this podcast and just go off on them. It's endless.
I think the like lightness and just not taking things too seriously is also something that I just value pushing myself to do that in a way, because part of my own nature is like I can get really like serious and like existential about things, but I also like this whole thing is supposed to be fun. Like life is supposed to be a fun fucking thing. And in these conversations of like exploring topics, it's totally rooted in like also this desire to like have fun and be silly and crack jokes and not take it seriously and not worry about sounding fucking smart or correct or whatever. It's really just honoring the art of conversation and like the art of exchanging ideas and everything that is involved in that.
Yeah. And just to go off on a few topics that we're going to talk about, like anything from consciousness to tapping into your inner power to things that are going on in maybe society that no one wants to talk about. We're going to go there. Yeah.
For sure.
And really going deep on subjects that allow you to evolve and grow while also explore and challenge yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. The vibe I really get from what we're trying to do here is just like there's an endless well of things that we can discuss, and it's all with the through line of like the fact that we're here to be authentic and tell the truth and just figure things out as we go. And like with that, it's like anything is on the fucking table. Yeah. And yeah, I'm just really excited to like explore all that. And I'm always reminded when I listen to my favorite podcasts that are like conversational and open and just playful with everything, that it's so good for you. It just feels good. I think we need to push our minds more and like stretch our thinking and let loose and not be so tightly gripping to the ideas that we have.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we can go into a little bit about ourselves and just like small intros on how we really got here. I think it's always interesting to hear about how someone awakened and came to this spiritual
like what does
path.
it mean that we kind of identify as spiritual? Like how did we get there?
Yeah. Okay. I'll go first. Awakening on your spiritual journey isn't pretty. There's a lot of darkness, and maybe if you're listening and you feel like there is darkness on your path, know that it's there to serve you. So the beginning of my journey started when I was dealing with a lot of darkness after graduation. I was working in the corporate world and marketing. And yeah, without going into too much detail, I was dealing with panic attacks at work. I was never diagnosed with depression, but I was definitely struggling mentally. And I was never put on any medication because I never went to a doctor. I really took it upon myself to go into the holistic world, and I started healing myself holistically. And I got super into holistic health and the plant-based diet and working out. And at the time, everything that I was doing really served me because it brought me out of a really dark place in my life. And that was the biggest shift in consciousness I had, because I shifted from victim to being the co-creator of my life without even realizing that terminology was what I was integrating into my life. Yeah. There's a really special part of your journey when you go from thinking that the world is happening to you actually having that co-creator energy to go after life in the way that you want to. And that was that shift that occurred for me when I leaned into the holistic world and I got my holistic health coaching certification. I was like, whoa, like I'm going to be a health coach. Like I can leave this corporate world. I don't have to stay here. I remember looking in the cubicle. I would stand up from my cubicle looking around at the office, and there would just be like people in their 40s sitting in these cubicles, and they have been working in this same career for their whole life. And I remember putting myself in their shoes thinking, would that make me happy? And the answer was so clear and so in my face that I knew that that was not my path. And that was my first opportunity to really lean into my intuition and know that my journey was meant to go somewhere else. So me going and getting my health coaching certification was really me finding the light and starting to heal myself from the inside out. And eventually I moved to California, and that was when I really declared that I was going to go full-time with my health coaching business, and I was going to be consistent with posting online and get all these clients. And I went into another state of panic and fear and fell back into the victim mindset and ended up taking on another 9-to-5 job, and again dealing with anxiety, dealing with very poor mental health. And it wasn't until I was at a Red Rocks show. I was at Rufus to Soul.
Ooh. I might go see him in August.
Oh, yeah?
I really want to go, yeah.
Where are they performing?
Boston.
Oh, shit. I thought they were like done touring.
Oh, I don't know.
Someone told me that they like broke up.
No, that could never happen.
Anyway, I mean, I've seen them many times, and the last time I saw them, it was like the 5th time I had seen them, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm good.
Really?
Yeah. I just had seen them so many times in like a 2-year span, because they're freaking incredible. Like if you haven't seen them, you should 100%.
Yeah, I want to go. Yeah.
But yeah, I was at a Red Rocks concert, and I had taken mushrooms, and I think I had only done like a full dose of mushrooms one time before. And holy shit, it was like in the midst of me being back in my 9-to-5, living in California, and all of a sudden I had this like really insanely dark trip where I was starting to realize that like I was not on my path again. And it was this massive awakening for me. It was super uncomfortable.
This happened at the concert?
Yeah, I felt super bad.
Maybe that's why you're never going back. You're like, Rufus so traumatized me.
No, I did actually go back to another concert after that. I think 2, actually. I went to 2 after that. Yeah, I felt so bad for my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time. I was just like, oh my God, I think I need to stand up to the side because this is too much for me. But yeah, I ended up having this awakening moment and being like, what the hell am I doing? Like, this is not my path. And I'm such a sensitive being that when I am out of alignment and I'm doing something that isn't where I'm meant to be, I feel it almost, I wouldn't say immediately because it takes a few, I would say like weeks, maybe a few months if I'm like really not conscious and aware. But holy crap, do I feel it. It's like straight in my face, red, you are out of alignment. And that mushroom trip for me was a huge moment for me to be like, okay, this is it.
Where do you feel it exactly?
When I'm out of alignment?
Yeah. Like, what does that
It's so funny you're asking this because my journal prompt today, my journal was, how do you know you're out of alignment?
Yeah. Like, what in detail are you feeling?
Okay.
It's sometimes hard to explain, but just like, I'm curious if you've conceptualized what it feels like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's go into it. I totally have. So when you're out of alignment, and this is, I'll share it from my personal perspective because I'm sure it's different for everyone, but maybe people will connect to this. When you're out of alignment, the way that I see that is you're not in tune with like your highest being. You're not in alignment with the energy that you can function best at. And it's like a mismatch of timelines. It's almost like your highest timeline is here and you may be down here, which is okay. Sometimes you're meant to actually be out of alignment to learn and to gain strength and to observe the things that bring you down there. So when I'm out of alignment, I notice it. It takes me a few weeks to notice it because I start to get super unconscious and I start to have different tendencies with the way that I eat, with the way that I scroll on Instagram and TikTok. And I start to go back into the victim mindset. So I start looking around at my surroundings and blaming external circumstances for the way that I'm feeling. And I don't feel in my power and I don't feel good from within. And it's this very obvious feeling of being in a different state than the state that I know that I can be in when I'm in alignment. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What would, like, the way that you collected data on figuring out what is alignment was like when you almost got like sick of feeling like sometimes we go so long feeling a certain way and we don't actually realize that that's not normal or that there is an alternative option. So it's like, a lot of times we know a feeling because we've experienced the opposite.
Yes. And that is so important. What you just said, you learn, and I just posted this on my Instagram the other day, but you're off Instagram right now. I literally made a tweet that said like, you learn through the opposite experience.
Yeah.
So this is why being in those chapters are actually super beneficial to you because you're picking up data and information on the things that are no longer in alignment with where it is you want to live at, like what vibration you want to live in.
Right. And that's if you are paying attention to how you are literally just feeling in general or the way that you're talking about the things that you're doing. It's like, how does the physical actions of your current life feel for you mentally, physically, spiritually, And then because every once in a while the universe kind of, or something comes along that you're like, wait, that's really cool. And then you're like, whoa, I didn't know I could feel like that. That's like your new opposite of understanding there's another opportunity out there for you.
Right.
Which is what you experienced.
Yes. So I had to experience the contrast there. And it was a huge wake up call for me after that concert. I think I had spent maybe like 3 more months in the 9-to-5 job, like planning my way out. And I saved up some money. I had a long conversation with Peter, and I quit. I think it was in November. The concert was in August and I quit in November.
What year is this?
This is 2021. And then I stepped into 2022 telling myself, like, this is it. Like, I am going all effing in. And I had read the book, The Untethered Soul, during that dark chapter of the summer of 2021. And it woke me the F up. Like, that was such an amazing shift in consciousness for me to understand that I am not my thoughts. And all this time I was battling with trying to start my business and be a coach. I kept giving up because I kept feeding into the thoughts and believing those fear-based limiting beliefs that were telling me to not go after something. And it was so painful to continuously listen to that because that brought me out of alignment because I was listening to the thoughts that were just from the ego, and it wasn't my highest self guiding me in life. I was being guided by the ego. And when you're guided by ego, you're really doing the things that are going to just keep you safe, which isn't necessarily bad, but it starts to get super uncomfortable because our souls are quite literally meant to expand and grow in this lifetime. And if you're not challenging yourself and expanding and growing, it starts to get really uncomfortable. And it's not to say we're constantly supposed to be working on ourselves and healing. It's just about taking a route in life that feels fulfilling and challenging and that allows you to learn new things. So yeah, just going back to the book and how that really woke me up, I had this moment of being like, holy shit, like I can actually observe these thoughts and still take the action I want to take in life. And that's where I started to really take my awakening to another level. I started leaning into Joe Dispenza's books. I started learning about manifestation, how you can actually utilize your energy to attract certain things in your life. And this is where I was really shifting into that next level of consciousness, the co-creator, where I thought I had to like really control my reality and like really do all the manifestation things in order to get those things in my reality, which there is a place for that in one's spiritual journey to be at that point in the manifestation journey of like constantly doing the meditations. And that is a really important part of your journey to realize that you can co-create with the universe. And I feel like everyone has their experience of their first manifestation chapter where it was like fucking crazy because from 0 clients to I think I had 20 clients in like the first 3 months.
That's insane.
It was crazy. Like I was leaning into all these beautiful practices to elevate me, to attune my frequency, to attune my energy. I was doing visualization meditations. And then next thing you know, like I was running my business. And I started actually leaning into the spiritual path as a way to coach people. And I was coaching other people with the manifestation journey as well and helping other people start their business. And it kind of led me to this point in my journey where I was realizing that the things you're manifesting are never going to actually make you feel a certain way, and that everything you desire to feel actually comes from within. And that led me to another dark night of the soul where I actually went into another chapter of turning inwards and realizing like, wait, what am I chasing? Happiness outside of myself? Like, am I chasing success only? Am I feeling success only when there's money coming in, only when there's clients coming in? Like, why am I actually doing these practices? And I went into like another dark night where I was reading more about like what it truly means to feel at peace and to live in the now. And that's when I learned all about Eckhart Tolle's work. And I started learning about real inner peace and inner freedom. And that's where I really started to learn about like nervous system, like regulating your nervous system and really being in the body and the energetics of that. And then that brought me to like the next level of my journey where I was literally living in such an elevated state of peace by integrating all this wisdom into my life that it just took me to a whole new level of playing the game of life. Like it was amazing. And now as a coach, I combine everything now that I've learned through my journey of like tapping into your inner power, manifesting, but also really establishing that like concrete state of peace from within. And of course, there's going to be hardships in life. You're going to deal with challenges, but really understanding the practices of how to integrate this information and provide you with this state of inner freedom and peace from within. So yeah, I'm doing the coaching with this perspective on essentially what I do is I guide people through their own awakening process of tapping into their inner peace, their inner power, and eventually their purpose with their careers. And I do a lot of subconscious work that has helped me immensely in my journey. And I'll save all the subconscious talk for another podcast because that's really my specialty with what I do with my clients. But yeah, I'm feeling amazing at this point in my career. I'm really about to like go all in with my coaching, and this podcast like could not have landed at such a perfect time. It's just been such a journey, and I feel like I literally stepped into a timeline, like I hopped timelines starting this past month.
Yeah.
Like with us starting this podcast, it's just alignment. And I'm sure I've left out a lot of parts of my journey, but I'll definitely be filling everyone in as we go.
We're going to get the lowdown over the years. Wow. That is a great story. That is, I'm just taking it all in. It's cool to like, you know, it's funny. The human characteristic of when you learn something and are helped out by it so much that you really want to give it back to other people.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually one of like the really nice things that gives you like a lot of hope for humanity is that it's actually really common of just, it can manifest in negative ways with like religious cults and stuff, but on the positive way,
on the flip side,
it's like when you experience something and you just, you know, you just feel how fulfilled and happy you are, you want to give it back. It's like turns into your gift. And then that's how you are grateful for the struggle and the dark parts. You're like, wait, that is exactly why I know this wisdom now, or like have this gift to share with people, is because I experienced whatever hardship. I mean, whatever level of hardship is for you, like the hardest thing that you've experienced is the hardest thing you've experienced. So it's like the same.
Right. And it's really powerful to be able to see someone transform and to help someone. It is truly so fulfilling to be of service to another being. And that's why I really do love the coaching aspect of what I do, because it's so freaking cool to sit across from someone and to witness them have that shift in perspective or that shift in consciousness that we both know can literally change everything in your life. Like you seeing something in a different way can change every single outcome that is to come in your life. It's
literally like evolution.
Yeah.
Like we need that. That's why that's why like I still am passionate about this, but I especially went through a phase of being so passionate about like how fucking important it is to embrace disagreement and exposing yourself to different ideas, because what we see happen in societies and cultures when people's ideas stay the same and they just are reinforced and everybody's just doing groupthink, it's like we're literally decaying. Like we are literally dying inside via the fact that our minds are not growing at all. And like you need to be making new neural connections and new perspectives and shifting and evolving. And it's like insane that when we don't do that, like that is just, we're plummeting into darkness. And it's so fucking important. It's like the cornerstone of every time human civilization has gone through a big transformation, is like people were challenging things and were meeting up in coffee shops and discussing and whispering about what they really thought about things. Like that's what catapulted us into like new eras of innovation and creation and all that stuff.
That's really interesting. So pretty much this podcast is preventing
the revolution.
And we are preventing you from decaying.
You're welcome.
No. Kidding.
No, I know. Joking. LOL. Well, I'm trying to think of where to begin. Okay, so what I think of whenever someone asks me like, so like, what do you do? What's your story? I, similarly to a lot of people, to kind of anchor this into the theme, which we've been touching on, is like, how have we become what we would define as spiritual or awakened or whatever that means? Because it's like kind of a trendy term too. That's like, yeah, I'm fucking spiritual. I have a tarot deck, and it's like, what does that mean? Like,
You just reminded me that I forgot to put the crystals out on the table.
Oh shit, we gotta start over.
We're going home.
I have crystals. I'm wearing one around my neck. I meditate. I'm very spiritual.
Big crystal girl.
Big
over
crystal
here.
girl, yeah. But no, so I think so basically when I have always known kind of what I wanted to do, which is a blessing. Ever since like middle school, high school, very early on, I learned and had other people tell me, like, you're really gifted at film and video production. Like, do you want to do this? So I had like teachers, and, you know, my parents were always supportive of every single one of us. Was like, what do you want to do? What's your dream? You can do it. Like, there's absolutely no reason why you can't achieve your goals, which is just such a blessing to have that as a kid. So I've known for a long time that I wanted to be in production. I want to make videos. I wanted to make movies. I also, like, from a young age, loved the idea of impacting a lot of people via being like a public figure, or like an actor, an actress or something. Like, I just always wanted to be seen. And I don't know where it came from. Like, it's always been something I've desired, and it's evolved in this thing of like, I love sharing ideas with people and knowing, just like seeing that it's impacting someone, and the idea of like packaging up this concept that I've understood and putting it into an art form of either a written essay or a podcast or a YouTube video or an Instagram post. Like, I've always been very creative and clear on the fact that I want to make stuff that is digital, basically. So I like study that in college, and I basically, you know, I moved to LA and I got like a classic marketing, like media agency job, in corporate. And then you can guess the next sentence. It wasn't that great. I hated it. So the point is, I had a similar experience of like followed, you know, my passions as best as I could, but then ended up in a job that I just didn't like. It wasn't the right version of what I wanted to do. I was like, I want to be in this general industry. I want to work, you know, around movies or production or content, but it was corporate's not for everyone. I think it actually is for some people. I think some people love it and thrive in it, but I think for other people it's not great. And for me, it didn't work. I just felt miserable. I called my mom 2 weeks into the job. I was driving home and I was just crying on the phone. I was like, I fucked up. Like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, this is so bad. And I stayed in that job for a year and 3 months. I really stuck it out, but I immediately started job hunting. But I was like, okay, I don't really know how to actually get like another job. It took so long to get this job that I was like, okay, I guess I'll just stick this out. So anyways, I started working in early 2020, my first job. I started my podcast at the same time, and I wanted to have a side project. So the whole time that I've been a working adult, I have also had a side hustle from the beginning. And that anchored me in, of like, kept reminding me of my dream and my vision and what I actually want to do with my life. So 2020 happens, the pandemic hits, and I have like, you know, I'm working remote, but I also have all this time to like keep doing my side hustle and to create a personal brand on Instagram. So I kind of like have always managed somehow to stay true in some form to the grander vision, but it came in ebbs and flows. And my like awakening basically happened like in tandem with always having a small percentage of my time contributing to the dream. And so in mid 2020, which is when a lot of people also had their awakenings because everyone was home, we were spending time alone. I was spending a lot of time alone. I would like go to the beach in LA and meditate. I started reading The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama. So I like got kind of just pulled into Eastern philosophy, and it immediately was like lighting up really fascinating insights for me. So I started doing just self-care and spending time alone and pondering, and I started reading this book about like the Buddhist view of happiness, and it basically caused this ripple effect of then I found more books on Eastern philosophy. So my awakening was really aided by reading and learning about different philosophical concepts. And I had never been spiritual before. I was actually, like, I identified as atheist up until the end of college. I had a very averse reaction to anything religious, anything had to do with God. I was like, nope, not real. Like, you guys are all stupid and crazy. That was like my fucking viewpoint. And then I just felt all of a sudden this sense of connection to everything around me. And I was reading these ideas from Eastern philosophy about being connected to nature, and that in our minds we make up this false perception that we're separate from the things around us. And at the same time that I was reading it, I would go to the beach and journal and hang out alone. And one day at the beach, I was like looking out at the ocean, and I just had this full body feeling of being like, I'm literally no different than the ocean. Like, we're the same thing. And I didn't know how to really put it into words, but it just made so much sense in my body and like in my mind that I was like, I'm one with this thing. Like, somehow I just understood all at once, which I learned later is called a sudden awakening, a satori, they call it in Zen Buddhism, is when all of a sudden things click and you see the truth, which is that you are one with the universe and you're not separate. The I, ego, is an illusion, and you are one with everything around you, with the people, with the grass, with the fucking carpet. Like, everything is actually all one. It is, because it all came from the same thing. So, with the blade of grass, with the bunny outside, with the headphone, literally. So, that was like my true, like, spiritual awakening. Like, I was having these realizations that Buddhist monks and like philosophers realized centuries ago, which is why it felt like a remembering. So that was my experience of dipping into what spiritual means. It turned into like, it's not religion, but it was like I had a sense of faith. I had a sense of a higher power, a universe, a God of some kind that was flowing through all things. I discovered Alan Watts, who's my favorite writer, and he basically popularized Eastern religion for the West. And I basically deep dived all these books, and I just became incredibly curious and like had this insatiable desire for learning more about the way that the universe works and like spiritual truths with a capital T. And that started to inform the work I did as a personal brand and the content I would share on my Instagram or, you know, in the podcast in general. And throughout this whole time, I was interviewing people on my show and just like exploring all my interests. I just like always felt the pull to like keep doing podcast things, like try this, try that. I would just try all different projects and just kept them going. And then basically in 2020, at the end of 2021, I left LA. I was in a job working at this honestly great company, but it didn't work because I wasn't aligned with how they were handling like certain current events, to say the least. And I just had this feeling. I was like, I need to leave LA. Like, this is not working anymore. This city has changed. This is not aligned. And I was also alone because my boyfriend Milan had moved to Texas, whatever, story for another time. But the point is, I became a nomad in 2022. And then I made the decision to leave my job in May of 2022 with no fucking plan, which is insane. But I was like, I need to go all in on my writing work, on my podcast, on YouTube, on just me being my own entity. So I left in May 2022, and it's been a very insane ride. And I've really learned what it means to like feel whole and confident when you have basically like almost minimal income coming in.
Yeah.
Which has been the wildest journey and has really opened me up to what it means to be like abundant in like a very deep way that's not just based on like having a steady paycheck. So yeah, that's like kind of one avenue of, in terms of answering what does it mean to be spiritual, I spend a lot of time reading, pondering, studying, and sharing ideas about our consciousness, who we are as human beings, what it means to be in line with nature, to be in flow, to be in the, not forcing things. And that colors everything I do in life. Like, everything I share is informed by my software, which is one of oneness and duality and Wu Wei and like all these beautiful things that are basically like universal truths that I think we're here to like embody and remember. That's just a big part of who I am. And that has helped me become like a better communicator, better at conversations, a better friend, a better partner, a better daughter, because I like try to become just more conscious, more loving, and see how that can apply to when I'm being confronted with a situation that's uncomfortable or like an idea that I don't like. Is I'm always trying to update my software so that I can handle everything that life has to offer. So it's like one version of the story. I don't really know if it answers the question, but
No, I love it. I mean, let's talk more about the oneness aspect of this, because for me, oneness has been such a gateway to surrender. And I think there's something really beautiful when you can understand that there is a flow in all of this. And when we are fighting life, when we're going up the current, it feels tough. And having the experience of going with the current and being in alignment and understanding the oneness of everything, how do you feel like that allows us to really have a deeper sense of surrender and trust?
yeah. I mean, I feel like the reason why a lot of people, or why I in the past, sorry, there was a beep, that's why I'm wearing a weird face. The reason why a lot of times we become so frustrated with life, so I actually think because we don't properly understand who we are. And because we don't understand who we are, we don't understand how nature works. And nature is not just trees. It's like everything around us is just, it's basically just reality and the universe and how things come to be, how they die, how humans interact. Like there's this undercurrent that's kind of difficult to put a name on, but we call it nature. When we don't understand that, we're like fighting blind. We're like trying to do life, but we don't actually get how we work. And so we're like applying these concepts that we've picked up from other people on how to be logical and reasonable and follow this step. And then it stops working, I think, at some point, or you lose your happiness or you feel disconnected because you're not in line with nature. You're not in accordance with nature. That's the word I'm looking for. So when it comes to like surrender, which is such a big part of manifestation, like for me personally, some of my biggest manifestations have come through when I completely surrendered, which means like I actually embodied what it means to let go and be just in flow. And I feel like it helps you achieve that because when you can conceptually understand through reading or through firsthand like experience that you're part of this bigger organism, let's call it. Like a good way of understanding it is the trees outside have to get water from clouds, which don't live physically on the earth. Like they're in our atmosphere, but they're not attached to it. And they also live from the sun, which is a thing that is not also physically attached to the earth. And they live by the fact that the sun is feeding them and they're getting water and then they put it into the earth and it cycles. And that tree cannot be separated from the sun or else it will fucking die. And so that tree is, how do you actually separate it from the sun then? Like it's actually one and the same. If you're really trying to properly define what a tree is, you have to mention the sun and water, which means can you actually separate any of them? Then can you describe water without the other elements around it? The fact that it like flows through something and has like a medium to go through. So when you like pick around those analogies and stories, then you're like, oh shit, this actually is all one. And then when that makes sense, you're like, I'm like that too. So this has got to apply in some other way. This has got to mean that I'm not really doing this alone. Like when I'm taking a walk, I can view like the butterfly flying by as just random, or I can say, I literally have the same, like I came billions of years ago from the same like speck of fucking dust that made that. And like, probably that's not completely random because it's like me waving my hand in front of my face and being like, this is not connected to me at all. And it's like, no, it's literally fucking in the same body. So the point is, I think with surrender, it helps because you have like a proof of it in things that you deem outside of yourself, and then you can apply it to your own life and be like, what if I, just followed my gut for a day and saw where it led me and viewed that as like not forcing. It was like, I'm hungry. Okay, I'm going to go eat. Like, I'm tired. I'm going to go sleep.
Yeah. So what you just said right there is a perfect segue into what I wanted to talk about. So if we are seeing this oneness all around us and seeing ourselves as a part of it, how can we best be one with the oneness? How can we best flow with the current? And I feel like this ties beautifully back into what you just said about listening to your gut, aka following your intuition, aka following what feels right to you.
Yeah.
And it goes back into this conversation of either having your life be a manifestation of you following your mind and the logics and what you deem as like acceptable and what you should do. If you live your life by the shoulds, then it's almost like we begin fighting this natural current that is trying to actually help us live a life that is very easeful.
Yeah.
And this isn't to say you have to like quit your 9-to-5 job, but it is to say that there is a pulling within you, an intuition that is guiding you towards the things that light you up, that really make you feel present and alive. And it's not about quitting your 9-to-5 and uprooting your entire life and starting a whole life from scratch tomorrow, but it is just starting to tune into your own internal cues.
Yeah.
And this is why meditation and journaling are such powerful practices, because a lot of times we're unconscious and unaware of our own inner being. And to connect to your own inner being is to actually pick up on the cues of how to really put yourself into this flow. And life unfolds in ways that you really can't ever imagine. It's far beyond what you could have ever dreamt of, but at the same time, exactly what you wanted to manifest.
Yeah.
Like
it's like, to give another nature example, like the flower like doesn't really think or debate about blooming. Like it just does it. And then it's like stunning and amazing. And then it dies and wilts and goes into the earth. And then it like comes back as something else. But it's not like fucking plotting how it's going to do that. It just knows that it's going to bloom. And like, that's the insane thing about the double-edged sword of how evolved we've become as human beings. And like this incredible conscious mind we have is that it's also fucking stupid. And it chooses the thoughts that don't make any sense because we have this ability to conceptualize and label and categorize things and understand what's the world around us. And then we have the ability to make stories about it. And then we have the ability to listen to what someone else says and take their truth as meaning that that works for you. And then you completely disregard what is in your nature, which is why people talk about like, it's not like you're becoming someone. It's more like you're letting the true self come out. Like it was always in there. It's not like an ulterior fucking costume you put on. It's more like you took the mask off and allowed yourself to bloom. Like literally all life forms grow from within themselves. Like the baby starts this fucking big and it fucking becomes a human being by its insides. It's all already in there. No one's like adding shit. You're feeding it, you're giving it water and love and sustenance. And then all of that breaks down and it grows from inside.
Yeah.
Like that's the same thing. That's how we work.
It's really actually crazy if you think about it. And this concept in my life, oneness, has done so much for me. It has alleviated a lot of anxiety and fear that I've felt in my life. And to also know, like how you're saying about things just happen naturally in nature, it's really important to set your goals in life and have a vision, but to also surrender into knowing that things are going to happen naturally. Mm-hmm. And even if you were to have told me like a year ago that I'd be here right now with you, I wouldn't have known who you are. Right. I would have been
and then you would have tried to like, oh, am I supposed to be doing this today? And make sure that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like the point is you taking action. The caveat is like, that doesn't mean like literally cease to do things ever. It's more like keep doing things and following the compass that's inside of you, knowing that they are leading to the aligned things. Like obviously there's also a place for rest. There's a time to not do anything, to like actually do nothing, to be purposeless. But then the overall thing is more, all of your actions are to the tone of trust and surrender. And it also does wonders for your anxiety.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah. I remember I had that big oneness realization when I was flying on a plane. I made a post about it on my Instagram. I was just like looking down at all these little houses as we were landing and like all the cars that were just driving, and it looked like a freaking simulation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we are so small, so small. Yes. And the way I think about it is like the gut microbiome has like all these organisms and like parasites and this ecosystem. And if you were to take one of those little microscopic, like let's say like, I'm not remembering the word of what to call those.
Microbes?
Yeah, microbes. If you were to take one of those out and have a conversation with it,
how are you feeling today?
It wouldn't understand that it's a part of a whole system, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a flow to it. There's an ecosystem. And like, if you really zoom out of the gut, there's like the stomach and then there's the body. And we are so freaking tiny. We're one of those little freaking microbes.
Yeah.
And we can get super anxious when we believe that we are separate. And like this idea that I'm separate from you and I am just me and I need to fend for myself. And it's this very egotistical way of seeing ourself in the world. And the ego mind, that I mean is quite literally what it's here to do. It's here to put you with this individualistic mindset towards yourself that is here to keep you safe. It's here to preserve you. And when we're not conscious and aware and raising our awareness and raising our consciousness to be able to observe that activity of the mind instead of identify with it and believe that every thought that we have is true and every fear that we have is something that we actually need to lean into and believe, we need to be able to have that discernment of figuring out like what part of my mind is actually not serving me now. Yeah. And how can I actually sink into the beingness of my body and be able to guide my life through my heart with the combination of using the mind when it's necessary. And when you're able to do that, this is why everything on this spiritual path makes so much sense, because the oneness connects to being able to raise your consciousness, and meditation allows you to do that, and tapping into your inner power. Like all of these topics, I just can't wait to dive into all of them because they really have this very special cadence in one's journey where it allows them to be one with the ecosystem that is around us and be in flow. And with that, your body starts to regulate and you start to actually feel a sense of peace and calmness, and the anxiety goes down.
Nice. It is really nice. Like
it takes work. It takes freaking work.
It takes work, but
like a lot of work, like a consistent practice. And that's why it's called a practice.
Yes.
A lot of the times we get lazy and we don't want to do it. And we go into the forgetting phase of when we're not remembering all these truths, and all of a sudden the anxiety comes back and the victim mentality comes back. But that's okay. It's an ebb and flow. It's a constant journey.
And you kind of need them to even understand the other concepts.
Totally necessary. The lows are just as important as the highs. And to honor those times as a moment to recognize what the mind is showing you and how you can start to dissolve and lean into more compassion with that. But yeah, I mean, I'm just excited to jump into all these topics. I feel like we're doing a summary of all these tiny little topics that we're going to go into big detail with.
Great. I really liked that.
Yeah.
That was very enjoyable. How about we wrap with sharing what out of our minds means to each of us? Just take a little quick dip.
Okay, you go first because I feel like you have stuff like ready to go, and you've been like wanting to get into this. Let's hear it.
I'm like, I have a presentation.
She has another deck.
I have a deck to show us. Okay, well, so this name, we were like brainstorming names, and actually, this name is partially inspired by, I feel like I received like an omen, like a sign about the name, because I was writing down different things and we wanted it to be like, I don't know, just
We want it to be fun and playful.
Fun and playful,
Yeah.
but also like a play on words, whatever. It was not overthought. The point is, Alan Watts talks about this idea of two things: getting out of his own way, and then also the benefits of getting out of his mind, which means, in like a spiritual perspective, not always letting the chatter of the mind to drive your life, and to not view yourself as like this machine that's just being driven by this box up here, and you're just like being dragged around by like the whims of your thoughts. And instead to get out of the mind and into the body,
Yep.
which is actually a way that you become more of a whole being, and you view yourself as this mind, body, soul complex, which is a concept that is talked about in the law of one. It's a whole different thing we could get into, but the point is like viewing
A 5-part series on the law of
honestly, is like viewing yourself as this grander being that is a mind, body, soul, but is also connected to other things. So I love the idea of out of our minds because, one, you can view it as a play on words of like, you know, get into the body and like be a more holistic being. But I also love the fact that it makes people think that we're crazy and insane, because I find it fun to like, I think life is a lot more fun when you're not worried about sounding sane to people. And I feel like it's,
Well, what even is sane?
I just don't, exactly.
In today's society, if what is out there is sanity,
I don't want it.
I don't want it. I don't want it.
Right. It's like, fuck being normal. Fuck trying to make sense or be like polished and an expert about everything and not making mistakes. Like, it is so much more fulfilling in every sense of the phrase to be out of your mind and every way that you interpret it. That's just what I love. I just, every time it reminds me of both getting out of the mind and into the body and living as like that whole holistic being of a mind, body, and soul, but also just fucking get out. Like, who cares? Like, be silly and weird and be insane. Like, who the fuck cares?
Yeah. And that is where, like, to go into my view on it, it ties into the way that you described it. Because even when we were talking about this title, the first thing that came to mind is exactly what you're talking about, of like really being in your body. And that is where you access a new way of living. When you finally get out of your mind and into your body, there's a whole new world that begins to unravel. And I see this path that, I see the path that I'm on as a constant practice of coming back into the body. And when you're in the mind, depending on the way that your mind is programmed, there can be a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, a lot of thoughts that are just running constantly. And to get into the body is to be able to free yourself from that and access deeper levels of intuition, peace, power, abundance, joy. I mean, all of these feelings that exist for all of us within the body. Mm-hmm. These are states of being that exist in the body.
Yeah.
And to heal and to turn inwards and to unblock and to release the energetic blockages and the traumas and all that, it takes a level of practice of being in the body and to get out of the mind. So to get out of the mind to me just means to unlock a new way of living. And then also there's the fun side of it, of just being fucking crazy bitches.
We're literally insane.
I mean, some of these topics, like what we're going to talk about, are going to seem insane to some people, and that's okay. But if you're listening to this podcast, then they're probably not going to be that crazy.
Yeah. We're just, honestly, the name is to just like level the playing field, let you know what you're getting into. You know, we're doing ourselves a favor so that if anyone is like, what is this podcast? Okay, they literally called themselves out of their minds. Like, I think we know what we're going to get. We're kind of saving ourselves the trouble of excusing ourselves.
But if you're in this world, you're in this world.
So welcome.
Welcome. Greetings.
Okay, cool. That was fucking bomb. 111. Let's stop the recording. Okay, high five.
Okay,
bye, guys. See you next time.
We're stopping at 111.